Hello, my name's Tom Repass of Canyon Rim Honeybees in western South Dakota. In this video, I will show you how to light and use a smoker. Over the years, I've seen that many new beekeepers struggle with learning how to light and use a smoker. There's nothing more frustrating when you're out there in the bee yard, you're opening a hive and you need your smoker, only to find out that it's gone out. Some beekeepers don't use a smoker as often as they should, partly because they struggle with lighting it and keeping it lit. So in this video, I'll show you how I light a smoker and also give you some tips on how to use it. Thank you for watching. I keep my smoker fuel and also the tools to light it in a toolbox in my work truck where it's always easily accessible for when I need it. I always make sure to check it at the end of the day and if necessary load it back up with paper, cardboard, burlap, or whatever fuel I'm using. There's nothing more frustrating than when you're miles from nowhere in an outyard and you ran out of fuel. The other thing that I want to point out is that we all have our favorite smoker fuels. If you don't have access to burlap but you can use corn cobs or pine needles, then use what you have. Here's everything ready to go to light my smoker. I like to use a hot flame such as propane burner to get it started. Paper, it could be packing paper, newspaper, something easy to light. Then cardboard, these are old egg cartons but you could use anything else. Then I add burlap. And then finally, to produce the smoke and keep it going, I use wood pellets as you might use in a wood pellet stove to heat your house. When I'm running between outyards, I keep my smoker in a small garbage can with the hole closed with a plug. I don't want to be that guy starting a forest fire. Some folks use a lighter or matches to light their smoker, but I don't recommend that as it can be very frustrating. So to light your smoker, first fill it full of the most easy light fuel, which is paper or newspaper, and then use a propane burner. This keeps your hands from getting burned, but it's also going to more readily light and not go out if you have a windy day. You want to pump the bellows as you're lighting it so that the flames are coming out the top. It goes without saying to be careful, keep your face away from the flame, and also keep a fire extinguisher in hand just in case. As I'm pumping the bellows, I add the next level of fuel, which is usually cardboard or old egg cartons, something to capture that flame and allow the flame to burn very hot. Next, I add burlap. I first add it loosely so that it can catch the flame and begin burning, all while I'm pumping the bellows. It might start smoking. I keep pumping until I see flames coming out again. Once it's burning good and hot, I then use my hive tool to slightly compress the burlap to form a bed where I can put the wood pellets in. How many wood pellets I add will determine how long they will burn before I need to add more. Next, I add something as a fire break. I tend to use sage because that's what we have and I like the way it smells, but you might decide to use green grass or even pine needles. Basically, it's to keep a spark from coming out of the smoker accidentally and then starting a fire. Then I put the lid back on and I keep pumping it until a cool white smoke is coming out. You want it to be cool enough to touch that it doesn't burn you and that there's no flames coming out of the nozzle. Well, now that the smoker is lit, let's go over to a hive and show you how to use it. I usually puff a couple of puffs of smoke into the entrance to distract the guard bees. When using a smoker, it's important to not use too much, only just enough. How much you use will depend on how defensive your hive is, what time of year. If there's a dearth going on, the bees may be more grumpy and more defensive. You may need to use more. On the other hand, during the honey flow, you may hardly need to use any smoke at all. Then as I remove the cover, I usually blow a puff or two on top of the cover, on top of the inner cover, and then on top of the frames as I remove the inner cover and each box. As you begin your hive inspection, you'll notice that some of the bees are looking at you from between the bars of the frames, and a puff or two of smoke will make them go back down below and ignore you, and also make it easier for you to pull out and remove frames without squashing too many bees. The other place where you may want to use the smoker is when you're ready to close the hive back up. In a stronger hive, the bees climb on the top bars of the frames, and if you just put the box back on, you'd squash a bunch of them, which would cause them to release alarm pheromone. A few puffs of smoke will drive them back down below the frame, so you won't squash as many of them. In order to prevent grass or forest fires, if I don't have a place to store my smoker, I'll often put it in a small metal bucket. That way it's not sitting directly on the ground. Finally, when I'm ready to move on to the next bee yard, I put a plug, usually a stick or a cork, into the hole of the smoker. I put it back into my small garbage can, and then I seal the top tightly. I hope that you all have found the information in this video useful. My only other word of advice is to practice lighting your smoker and keeping it lit. The more you practice and use it, the better you'll get. And before you know it, lighting and keeping your smoker lit will be second nature to you. Thank you.